Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try to explain who you are, they just don't get it? Like your words collapse halfway through your truth, like your voice trembles while your spirit screams. But still, silence answers back. You try again, you reach deeper, you open up, and still they look at you, as if your soul is written in a language they were never meant to understand. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're lost. It's not even because you're too complicated. It's because you're set apart. Chosen ones were never meant to blend in, and what God placed inside you isn't meant to be explained. It's meant to be revealed. That's why your truth feels too heavy for shallow conversations. That's why your vision is too vast for small minds. That's why your calling seems invisible, even when it's burning through your bones. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not imagining things. You're chosen, marked, moved by something higher. And this is why the world keeps misunderstanding you. Before we dive in, if this message already feels like it's speaking directly to your spirit, hit that like button to help this message reach another chosen one who's been silently drowning. Subscribe if you haven't yet. This space is your spiritual safe house, and drop 99 in the comments, not just as a number, but as a prophetic symbol that heaven is completing what was started in you, and that this message found you right on time. They talk, you speak. There's a difference. You see, when most people speak, they do it to be heard. When you speak, you're releasing something from within. It's not just words, it's weight. You don't speak to impress, you speak to impact, and that makes people uneasy. Because the moment you open your mouth, it's like the atmosphere shifts. Something unseen starts stirring. People lean in, not because you're loud, but because your words carry truth that their spirit has been secretly craving or trying to run from. You speak from the wounds you survived, from the depths you've walked through, from the revelations you've wept over in silence. You speak from encounters with God that don't fit into logical language. That's why they look confused when you speak, why they say, "You're too intense. You overthink everything. You're always so serious." But what they don't understand is that while they were building filters, you were being refined by fire. You're not trying to be deep. You are deep, because your calling was carved in the secret place. Your words aren't pre-planned. They come from a different realm, a realm where God whispered to you in your lowest hour, "Speak, even if your voice shakes." And so you did. But when you speak from such sacred depths, you must know, not everyone is ready to hear you. Because truth does not entertain. Truth confronts. Truth exposes. Truth rearranges the soul. And many people prefer the comfort of their illusion over the confrontation of truth. So when your voice starts pulling back veils, don't be surprised when they pull away from you. But listen closely now. You were never sent to be popular. You were sent to be prophetic. The words inside you were not meant to blend in with noise. They were meant to cut through it like a sword. And yes, there will be rooms that reject you, people who laugh at you, crowds that look at you like you're too much. But what they call too much, heaven calls anointed. Because when you speak, something begins to break. Chains they didn't even know they were wearing begin to tremble. The spirit inside the listener either awakens or runs. And that, chosen one, is why your words have always made the room go silent. Because silence is where truth starts echoing. But here's what they don't see. While they scroll through trends trying to find something to talk about, you're up at 3 a.m., bleeding prayers, wrestling with God, and carrying divine downloads you can barely explain even to yourself. You don't speak from this world. You speak to this world as someone who's already touched something eternal. So no, they won't understand where your words come from. Because how can someone living in the shallow end ever comprehend the one who breathes in the deep? You were called to pierce, not to please. And now, the time is coming where your voice will no longer be ignored. The same voice they dismissed will become the one heaven uses to wake the sleeping. But be warned, with every word you speak from your soul, darkness will try to silence you. People will misunderstand your silence and your truth. But what they don't realize is, every time they reject your words, they confirm your mission. And the more you are misunderstood, the clearer your assignment becomes. So, ask yourself, If your words weren't meant to shake things, why do they always leave echoes behind? Why do people replay your sentences in their head long after you've left the room? Why does your voice linger like prophecy? You already know the answer. And yet, this is just the first layer. Because what's about to be revealed next will explain not just why you speak this way, but who planted this voice inside you to begin with. Stay close. Something sacred is about to unfold. You've walked into rooms where conversations stopped and no one could explain why. You've smiled at people who suddenly grew quiet or defensive, as if your presence itself exposed something they were trying to hide. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't say anything threatening. You were just there. And yet everything shifted. Why? Because when you carry light, you don't need to speak for the darkness to feel threatened. Your very existence becomes a mirror that reflects what others have buried, a mirror that shows them what they've refused to confront, a mirror that reminds them they were created for more, even if they've spent years pretending otherwise. You've probably felt it, that invisible tension when you enter a space, the fake smiles, the forced energy, the subtle glances, as if people are trying to figure out what it is about you, but can't quite put their finger on it. Let me tell you what it is. It's not your clothes. It's not your looks. It's not even your words. It's your spirit. You walk with heaven's fingerprints all over you, and the world, conditioned to love the superficial, doesn't know what to do with someone who walks in truth without apology. You make people feel seen without even trying, because your eyes don't just observe, they discern. Your energy doesn't just enter, it interrupts. Not because you want to cause a disturbance, but because what's inside you carries alignment, and anything fake or hidden gets unsettled in its presence. That's why some people keep their distance. It's not hate, it's conviction. You remind them of the war they've been ignoring within themselves. You trigger the part of them that knows they're living beneath their calling, and instead of rising, they retreat, because it's easier to label you too intense than to admit they're not ready to level up. But don't dim your light for their comfort, because what intimidates them now is what will awaken them later. Chosen ones are walking alarms. Your presence alone sends a message. It's time to wake up. And those who are still clinging to the illusion of safety and shallow living, they won't want to hear that. Because you disrupt the slumber. You shatter the illusion. You bring a presence that whispers, there is more. There has always been more. You may have wondered why certain people avoided you, even though you showed them nothing but kindness. You may have blamed yourself, thinking you were too much, too raw, too spiritual. But let me reveal a truth most never hear. Your spirit isn't the problem. It's the cage they built around their own that can't handle your freedom. You walk like someone who's been through death and lived, like someone who's faced their demons and came back shining. And people who are still hiding from themselves, they don't know how to breathe around someone who finally is. But here's the deeper revelation. You weren't designed to be palatable. You weren't called to make people comfortable. You were sent to break atmospheres, shift frequencies, and remind souls of their eternal identity. That's why even when you're silent, you're loud in the spirit, because your presence confronts what their words try to cover. And this is the hidden cost of being chosen. You will walk into places and be misunderstood, not because of what you say, but because of what your very being awakens. So don't apologize when your light makes people squint. It's not your fault they've grown used to darkness. Instead, stand tall, stay radiant, and understand that every room you disrupt is a room heaven marked for transformation. Because even if they resist it now, they'll remember you later, when the illusion finally breaks and they start searching for truth. They'll remember the one person who walked in with it, unshaken. They haven't seen nothing yet. Because what's about to be uncovered in you, what heaven is preparing to release through your presence, will not only shift rooms, it will split the atmosphere open. But for that, you'll need to go even deeper, to a place few dare to go. And that's exactly where we're going next. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will explain the one gift you've always had, but never fully understood, until now. Some people call it intuition, others say you're too sensitive. But let's be honest, you don't just sense things. You see what others miss, you feel what others hide, and you know, Long before anyone says a word, you walk into a room and it's like the air talks to you. You notice the hesitation in their voice, the flicker in their eyes, the energy that clings to the silence between sentences. While everyone else is laughing at the joke, you're hearing the pain buried in their tone. While others are impressed by charisma, you're already discerning the hidden motive behind the smile. It's not paranoia, it's prophetic perception. You don't just see people, you see through them. Because what's operating inside you is not human instinct. It's divine discernment, a gift sharpened in the secret place, refined through betrayal, forged through isolation. You didn't ask for it, but heaven gave it to you, because your calling requires it. That's why lies feel loud to you, why manipulation makes your spirit uneasy, why you can't sit in fake circles without feeling the urge to leave. Your soul refuses to make peace with what's pretending to be real. And let me tell you something most will never say out loud. That kind of clarity can be exhausting, because you're always aware, always alert, always picking up what others are trying so hard to bury. It's a lonely gift. You try to explain what you're sensing to those around you, but they brush it off. They call you paranoid, judgmental, overreacting. They don't realize that you're not reacting to what's visible, you're responding to what's invisible. And that's the curse of insight. People won't believe you until the mask finally falls, until the truth you saw from the beginning crashes into the open. And by then, it's too late for them. But not for you, because you were never blind. You just had to carry the burden of seeing in a world that's addicted to surface. But don't let the rejection fool you. What they call overthinking is actually your spirit working overtime. What they call being too deep is just you refusing to drown in shallow waters. You've been an observer since birth. Even as a child, you could tell when something was off. The smiles that didn't reach the eyes, the hugs that felt cold, the words that said one thing, while the energy screamed another. It was never just vibes, it was revelation. And that revelation didn't come from books. It came from the battle scars of your soul. You learned to recognize deception because you've been betrayed. You learned to feel grief in silence because you've walked through it alone. You learned to read the spiritual room because you've been the only one awake in too many of them. And now, you've reached a point where the masks are louder than the people. You can't unsee what you see. You can't unknow what you know. And even if you try to stay silent, your eyes, your energy, your presence, they all speak. You expose without trying. You reveal without accusing. You confront without a word. That's why some people fear you, even if they never say it, because they know deep down they can't wear their mask around you for long. They'll either remove it or run. But here's the wild truth. This ability, this spiritual X-ray vision, isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about preparing you for what's coming. Because the path you're on will place you in rooms with influential people. People who look the part, speak the part, dress the part, but carry agendas that are dark, subtle, and strategic. You will need that gift then. You will need it to navigate, to intercede, to war in silence, and more importantly, to protect those who still can't see for themselves. This is bigger than you. This is warfare wrapped in discernment, and heaven trusts you with it. But before you start thinking you've seen everything, there's something else. A layer deeper than discernment. A frequency higher than perception. Because not only do you see what others can't, you also carry a spiritual memory of who they were before the world broke them. And in the next part, you'll understand why your presence makes even the strongest people cry. Why strangers confess things to you they've never told anyone. Why you attract both the broken and the envious. You're not just discerning the mask, you're about to discover the assignment hidden beneath it. So stay close, chosen one. Because what comes next will shift the way you see everything, including yourself. There's a reason why you've always felt out of place. Why no matter how much you tried to fit in, you didn't. Why the crowd could be laughing, and you'd still feel the weight of the invisible. You weren't created to blend in. You weren't sent here to be liked, approved, or explained. You were sent here to disrupt. The world has systems, patterns. It worships what it can calculate and control. It labels what it can't understand. And when it sees someone who walks with a calling that doesn't bow to its logic, it grows uncomfortable. That's why your presence always stirred something. Even before you knew who you were, the world did. It saw your light and tried to dim it. It saw your difference and tried to shame it, because your mere existence was already a threat to the status quo. Look at the prophets. Look at Jesus. He healed the sick, raised the dead, loved the unlovable, and still they shouted, "Crucify him." Why? Because what is anointed will always offend what is artificial. You carry a message, even when you're silent. You carry heaven's blueprint, even when you're walking through hell. You carry destiny, even when you feel like breaking. And the world doesn't know what to do with someone who won't conform, so it tries to reduce you, box you in, dismiss your depth, mock your sensitivity, call your insight delusion, say your boldness is arrogance. But all they're really doing is reacting to something they sense but cannot define. Because when heaven marks someone, hell notices first. And so does the world. You'll walk into rooms where people whisper before you speak. You'll feel rejected before introductions are even made. And it's not because of anything you did, it's because of what you carry. You carry disruption, you carry awakening, you carry the sound of chains breaking. And that sound offends those still clinging to theirs. So yes, they'll misunderstand you, they'll mislabel you, they'll distance themselves, not because you're wrong, but because you make their numbness feel too loud. But let me be clear, you were never meant to be understood by the world. You were meant to shift it, to rattle its illusions, to wake up its sleepers, to shine in places that have forgotten what light looks like. You weren't sent to join the crowd, you were sent to call them higher. And that kind of mission will always come with loneliness. Because when you carry a frequency from another realm, earthly minds will call it madness. But don't shrink. Don't simplify yourself to be digestible. Don't dilute your depth just to survive in shallow circles. You weren't called to be accepted. You were called to be authentic. Because those who are truly awake will recognize you. They may be few, but they'll see you. And when they do, your voice will become a lifeline. Your presence will become confirmation. Your walk will become a map for those who thought they were lost forever. And that, chosen one, is why your path had to feel so isolated, so heavy, so full of unanswered questions. You weren't losing yourself. You were shedding everything that wasn't true to your assignment. You weren't broken. You were being rebuilt outside of the world's approval. You weren't rejected. You were being reserved. Because when God wants to use someone to wake up the world, He first makes sure they're not attached to it. That's why your loneliness was holy, why your wilderness was sacred, why your silence had more power than any crowd could ever offer. You were becoming undeniably you, unshaken, unapologetic, unexplainable. And now, the world is about to see what it tried to overlook, but it still won't understand you. Because the kind of clarity you carry isn't taught, it's transferred. It's caught in the spirit. And only those willing to awaken will truly receive you. And that's the point. Because your calling isn't to be relatable, it's to be revelational. But here's the twist. Even though the world won't understand you, heaven has been watching, preparing a stage, setting a moment where everything you are will finally make sense in the light of who sent you. That moment is closer than you think. Because in the final revelation, the one that's coming next, everything you've carried, everything you've endured, will align with one divine reason. And when you see it, the world's misunderstanding will no longer matter. What matters is what's about to be revealed through you. There's something different about your steps, something people can't quite grasp, because it doesn't follow a formula. You're not moving based on facts or forecasts. You're not calculating each move based on what makes sense on paper. You move with something deeper, something sacred, something that whispers when the world screams. You follow the Spirit. And that alone makes you unrecognizable to people addicted to logic. Because let's be honest, this journey you're on, it doesn't make sense. You've walked away from stability, turned down opportunities, let go of relationships, said yes, when everything in the natural said no. Why? Because something inside you, something unseen, told you to. And people don't understand that. They say, but where's the proof? But what's your plan? But how do you know this will work? They want explanations, but what you have is revelation. They want guarantees. But what you carry is faith. You don't live by sight. You live by alignment, by divine timing, by sacred nudges, by those moments when your entire soul feels like it's being pulled in a direction no one else can see. And that's terrifying to those who trust only what they can measure. But here's the truth. You were never meant to be guided by what's visible. You were chosen to move by what's eternal. Because purpose doesn't follow a GPS. It follows the cloud by day and fire by night. And sometimes that means moving when it makes no sense. Sometimes it means staying still when everything says go. Sometimes it means stepping into unknown territory simply because the Spirit said, now. And in those moments, you don't have evidence. You have obedience. You don't have applause. You have anointing. And yes, it's lonely, because everyone else is busy building careers, climbing ladders, hitting milestones, while you're just trying to follow a voice that only you seem to hear. But let me tell you something. That voice? It hasn't failed you. Not once. Even when it led you through the fire, you came out refined. Even when it took you into the valley, you came out wiser. Even when it stripped everything away, you came out with more purpose than ever before. That's what makes your journey sacred. You're not just walking, you're being led. Not by fear, not by pressure, not by people's opinions, but by divine orchestration. And that's why explaining yourself feels impossible. How do you explain a spiritual mandate to people who only trust market trends? How do you break down your wilderness season to those who only respect resumes? You can't. Because the blueprint God gave you was tailor-made. It doesn't fit their expectations. It fits your assignment. And here's the part that most don't realize. The places you're going, the things you're building, the messages you're releasing, they're not recycled, they're revolutionary. You're not here to repeat what's been done. You're here to birth what's never existed. And that kind of calling will always look illogical, right until it becomes undeniable. Just like Noah building a boat with no rain. Just like Abraham leaving home with no map. Just like Mary saying yes to a miracle no one could explain. That's the lineage you come from. You don't need confirmation from the crowd. You already have authorization from heaven. And when the time is right, everything you obeyed blindly will become the very thing that others admire publicly. Because while they were watching numbers, you were watching signs. While they were chasing platforms, you were chasing presence. While they were building brands, you were building a bridge between heaven and earth. And soon, those who doubted your decisions will start asking how you did it, but they won't understand the price. The nights you questioned everything, the mornings you had to move without clarity, the moments you were ridiculed for choosing purpose over profit. But you'll know that you didn't get there because of strategy. You got there because of surrender. That's where it gets deeper. Because there's a reason God led you this way. A reason why every step required faith. A reason why your path looked like wilderness when everyone else had a map. It's not because you were lost. It's because you were being trained to lead others out. Because soon, people will come to you, not for logic, but for light, not for formulas, but for faith that moves mountains. And when that moment comes, everything you obeyed, everything you endured, everything you risked will finally make sense. But not yet, because there's still one final truth left to reveal. One last shift that ties all of this together. And when you hear it, you'll never see your journey the same again. So stay with me, chosen one. What's coming next will unlock the reason you've felt different your entire life. So if you've been struggling to explain yourself, stop. You were never sent here to be explained. You were sent to be undeniable. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand you. Because their confusion is confirmation that what's on you is not from here. You weren't called to be understood. You were called to be obedient. To the whispers, to the fire, to the pull of heaven that says, go when no one else will. And yes, obedience is costly, but disobedience to your soul costs even more. You've walked through silence, you've endured rejection, you've been the room's mystery and the world's contradiction. But that's not your weakness, that's your marking. Because while they tried to figure you out, God was setting you apart. While they looked for your logic, He was building your legacy. And soon, the same people who questioned your path will witness your purpose unfold. And not just unfold, but erupt. Because when God moves, He doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't wait for validation. He doesn't require a crowd to co-sign what He already crowned. And that moment is coming. The moment when your name is called. The moment when your no's make sense. The moment when your hiddenness becomes your greatest weapon. And when it happens, every doubt will bow. Every lie will dissolve. Every voice that tried to silence you will fall quiet. Because glory speaks louder than gossip. So keep walking, even when the road feels lonely, even when the silence feels suffocating, even when you have to carry the vision alone. Because the vision is real, and the assignment is holy, and you, chosen one, are not behind. You're not off track. You're not delusional. You're ahead of your time, and when time catches up with what heaven placed inside you, the world will finally see what it tried to dismiss. You weren't lost. You were hidden. You weren't confused. You were calibrated. You weren't too much. You were exactly what this generation has been waiting